Hello everyone, Hideout here, and today I bring you guys my final title update Dual Blades guide. On this video, I'm gonna be speaking about pretty much everything Dual Blades related. What weapons to use, which armors to use, what skills to chase, what switch skills to use, some general gameplay tips, and maybe even some more. So without further delay, let's move on to our first talking point, the weapons that we're gonna be using. To kick things off, let's start with the weapons that we're gonna be using, depending on our element matchups. These are Magma Armodrome for fire, Armodrome for water, Kushala Daora for ice, Narwa for thunder. For the dragon element, we're gonna be using the Primordial Molsino Dual Blades. Now, these ones are interesting because while they are slightly weaker in base stats than the previous best dragon dual blades in title of the fight, which are the however you pronounce that. The Primordial Molsino Dual Blades not only have way better purple sharpness than those ones, but it also has the insane access to 3 level 4 decoration slots, on top of having a level 3 rampage slot for Elemental Atk. And of course, for augmenting these weapons, all of these dual blades are gonna be augmented the same way, where we're gonna be grabbing a single attack upgrade and then we're gonna go full into elemental attack upgrades. But of course, there is a little caveat that I got to mention, and it comes specifically with the Narwa dual blades. This is because all of these dual blades have the option to use both an Elemental decoration when it is appropriate, and in case we can't take advantage of that, we can always go to the anti-species decoration. Now, the Narwa dual blades don't have that option since they come with a level 2 rampage slot. So for this specific case, what I recommend you to do is go ahead and craft your Narwa dual blades and upgrade them similar to all the others. But after you're done upgrading every single one of them, go ahead, craft a second one, upgrade this one for a rampage slot upgrade, and then you fill the rest with elemental attack upgrades. This way, while we're gonna be having a slightly less elemental attack with this one, the access to the element bane deco, which I gotta remind you, is a 50% increase to all of our elemental damage, which on the long run is gonna be way more valuable to increase our damage compared to the anti-species deco. It ends up being way more worth it than just having some extra elemental attack. And with the weapons out of the way, we can finally start talking about the builds themselves. And what better way to start this conversation than the OG build where all this concept originated from, the Full Chaotic Gore Magala set. Now, the Full Chaotic Gore Magala set, which was introduced in Title Update 3, it's a pretty solid set even here on the final update. This is because all of the skills in this armor were tailor-made for the playstyle of high elemental damage and high affinity. So to replicate this build, what you're gonna need is obviously grab your dual blade of choice, craft the entire Chaotic Gore Magala armor set, then you want to decorate the armor in the way that I'm gonna show you now on the screen. And lastly, you wanna grab a weakness exploit 2 talisman with 3 decoration slots, and at least one of these 3 slots needs to be a level 2 or more slot. And after all that, your skill list should look something like this. Now, I wanna take a quick moment to explain what makes this combo of Strife Berserk so good. Because most of these skills, you already know what they do. You know, they give you affinity, they give you elemental attack, they help your sharpness, like all of this self-explanatory. Now, Strife and Berserk, a little bit different. If you go to their in-game descriptions, they are kinda vague. Like, Strife just says that it increases your attack power, which is straight up wrong, because it doesn't increase your attack power, it increases your elemental attack. And it also says that it gives you an infinite stamina buff when it maxes out the attack, but like, what does all of this mumble jumble means? Well, let me explain quick. What a Strife actually does is give you percentage elemental attack and affinity if you have any amount of red HP in your bar, and this amount is increased depending on how much missing red HP you have, capping at 60%. What this means is that out of your entire HP bar, to get the full effect of Strife, you will need to have 60% of your HP missing and have all of that as red HP. So if a monster as much as scratches you, and not necessarily kills you, but by making contact removes the red HP, well then the full effect is gone. So considering that the highlight of this skill, at least at level 3, it's, you know, maxing out not only the damage and the affinity, but also getting the infinite stamina buff, playing under 40% HP, and avoiding the monster at all costs, doesn't sound that casual friendly. That is, until we pair this skill with Berserk. Now, Berserk is quite literally an enable for Strife, because what Berserk does is that when you change into your blue scroll, all of your HP will turn red and start draining. Also, you will gain the following quality, and that is that your HP is no longer an HP bar. And what I mean by this is that you will no longer take direct damage when you take hits during Berserk. Instead, what's gonna happen is that the HP drain that you're suffering from the skill is gonna get bigger and bigger to the point where, well, you're gonna have to A, leave your blue scroll so that you can reset your HP drain, or B, die. But of course, nobody wants to go through option B, so obviously we're gonna take option A, or some other options that I'm gonna be offering you later in this video. But the point is that now that your entire HP is red, Strife will always be running at full potential, including the infinite stamina buff, as long as you can keep your HP over 60%. And with that out of the way, now let's move into the upgrade to this OG Strife Berserk build, which I like to simply call Strife Berserk version 2. Now this upgrade to the OG set is very simple. We're gonna be replacing our chest and waist pieces with Ryzen Shagaru Magala pieces, and we're gonna change our Talisman from a Weakness Exploit 2-1 to a Critical Boost 2 instead. And this one is gonna need the same amount of slots than the previous one, meaning at least 3 slots and one of them being level 2 or more. Then you want to decorate the armor set as I'm gonna show you right now. And this should leave you with a skill set looking like this. If you paid attention to the skill list this time, you probably noticed that we dropped 4 points of critical eye in order to gain other more useful skills like handicraft to comfortably reach purple sharpness in all of our dual blades. Not to mention, we also grabbed the new skill from Title Update 5, Frenzied Bloodlust, for an extra wirebug every time we overcome the frenzy virus from Bloodlust. But this change was pretty easy to do, because the Ryzen Shagaru waist piece has Weakness Exploit level 2. Already, with a single decoration we can max that out and cover the 20% affinity that otherwise we would be losing from dropping 4 levels of critical eye. Now here's the part where I introduce how to make Berserk easier to manage. Allow me to introduce the comfy Strife Berserk build. At a glance, you will quickly notice that this is quite literally the exact same armor set that I just showed you, and it's because it is. Since the only difference that we have to do to this armor set in order to make it more comfortable, it's the Talisman. For the Talisman, what we want to do is go into the Cyclops Melding option, guarantee the Kushala Blessing skill, and what you want to do is fish for a Talisman similar to this one, with Kushala Blessing level 3 and at least recovery up level 2 and 2 level 2 slots. By grabbing a talisman with these specifications and using one of our previous empty decoration slots to fulfill the last remaining point of critical boost, we're gonna end up with the exact same set of skills, except that now we're gonna be having Kushala Blessing level 3 and some levels of recovery up included in our build. And you might ask, what makes these two skills so important to have that we're gonna have to dedicate an entire talisman to them? Well, that is quite simple. As you can read in the description right there, the level 3 of Kushala Blessing removes a soft cap that healing has when you have a big amount of red HP on your bar, and because Berserk makes our entire HP bar red, we normally are dealing with a soft cap to all of our healing, which is what can make Berserk hard to use if you don't understand these couple of things. So adding Kushala Blessing level 3 helps you remove said soft cap and heal like normal. And of course, we want to pair this with Recovery Up, and if possible with Dango Medic when you eat your Dangos, since they both stack, because getting as much as possible of these two skills increases your healing from all sources. This means potions, skills like Blood Ride, the Blood Blight from afflicted monsters, healing from followers or other players if you're in a multiplayer, and all of this once more allows you to keep your HP as full as possible while using the Berserk skill. Some more tips that I can give you to keep the Berserk HP drain under control are: always try to eat for a gourmet fish before you start a fight. This fish, combined with eating for Super Recovery Dango at level 4 before the quest, can help you to not only stop, but straight up negate the HP drain from Berserk, as in your HP will never go down using all of this unless you start taking hits. Now, the moment your HP will go down using these skills, it's when Bloodlust is up. Because the Frenzy Virus from Bloodlust is also an HP drain skill, it's gonna stack with Berserk when it's up, meaning that you're gonna be temporarily running a double HP drain skill, and this is honestly what makes Berserk kinda hard to use. And on a previous Dual Blades guide that I did, I recommended to actually get rid of Bloodlust entirely and substitute with another skill, you know, to complement the missing 20 to 25 affinity depending on the level. But honestly, for these Dual Blade guys, I'm gonna recommend you guys to do an effort to learn how to live with the constant on and off of Bloodlust, because this skill gives you so many stats and it does so much for you that I feel that just getting rid of it and not giving it a try, it's a big disadvantage. Not to mention that if we get rid of Bloodlust this time, we're also gonna have to get rid of Frenzied Bloodlust. Now, getting to the more interesting builds. If you manage to get a Berserk 1 Talisman that maybe look pretty decent in the slot or second skill department, then you can take that Talisman to upgrade your existing set. Again, by using almost any Berserk 1 Talisman that you can get your hands of, you can immediately make some upgrades to the set, mainly by replacing the legs with Risen Shagaru Magala and the helmet with Silver Rathalos. By making these changes and slotting the decorations as I'm gonna show right now, you're left with a skill list like this. So for the most part, it's the same that we had before, but now we not only managed to max our critical element and grab an extra point in element exploit, but we also grabbed the windproof skill, which is not really like a major or really like important skill, but it comes handy sometimes. And also on pair with our ammo up skill and our resentment skill, this all serves as skills that we can safely sacrifice through the skill plus Qurio augment option to get the best augments that we can once we decide that we want to do that with our armor set. Now, for the people who got seriously lucky and have a Berserk 2 Talisman, oh boy, this is where the fun begins with the playstyle. By indeed upgrading to a Berserk 2 Talisman, we can go ahead and remove the last remaining piece that we have from the Chaotic Gore Magala set and upgrade it instead with a Silver Rathalos piece. By using this mix set between Silver Rathalos and Risen Shagaru Magala and slotting in decorations as I'm gonna show you right now, we end up with a skill set like this. So, as there is the tendency with all of these builds that I'm showing, we're gonna be keeping all of our previous skills, but we're gonna be grabbing some new skills along the way and getting more points in others. As now we can fully max our element exploit skill and keep it a critical element at level 2 for a 25 overall increase to our elemental damage. We're also gonna be grabbing the second level of Frenzied Bloodlust from our armor set, meaning that our extra wirebreak now lasts 60 seconds instead of 30. And we're also gonna be grabbing some points of burst for an extra 5 to 12 flat elemental attack, depending on what stage of the skill we have active. Now, this is gonna be the peak of playing Strife Berserk without Qurio augmenting. This is not to say that this build can't be augmented. Oh, on the contrary, Considering that, as I mentioned before, we have a lot of skills that we can sacrifice through the skill plus augment option to try and get the best Qurio augmenting that we can, or as many extra slots as we can, to slot in even more skills that we already did. Your first priority for any of these builds that you decide to pick up for yourself, it's gonna be to go ahead and try to grab 3 points of Mellow Hellfire as soon as possible. This is because Mellow Hellfire is gonna act as a second Strife, in the sense that a Strife under Berserk is already a 20% increase to your elemental attack. Well, Mellow Hellfire at level 3, while just staying the Blue Scroll, aka the Berserk Scroll, you're gonna be getting an extra 20% elemental attack. So between your elemental attack skill, Strife, and Mellow Hellfire, we're talking about a 60% increase to your elemental attack. And that's the part where the build comes all together. That's also the part where you will begin seeing your elemental attack numbers reach the 300 mark. So after you secure your 3 points of Mellow Hellfire, you can take whatever remaining augments you have to go ahead and try to grab skills like at least a single point of Wind Mantle, and then you can pursue Wirebook Whisper. In fact, that's your biggest priority. After you got this build going, it's to try and get Wirebook Whisper level 3 for the extra duration in your third Wirebook and for the reduced cooldown on your skills. Now moving on to the actual endgame builds for Berserk based around a Berserk 2 Talisman, we're gonna be visiting the Berserk Heaven-sent build and the Berserk Blood Awakened build. For the Heaven-sent build, it's pretty simple. We're gonna be grabbing our Berserk 2 Talisman, and then we're gonna be grabbing the chest, arms, and legs from the Amatsu armor set. We're gonna be keeping our Rise and Shagaru waist piece, and we're gonna go back to our Chaotic Gormagala helmet. After dropping these decorations in your armor, your skill list will look something like this. Now, you can immediately tell that this build went bonkers, as now we got max critical element, max element exploit, max Wirebook Whisper, and we also got the Heaven-sent skill from the Amatsu armor. This skill is pretty insane. At level 3, after 50 seconds of being in combat with a large monster, we're gonna get a buff that, as long as we don't get thrown back by the monster or we stay too far away, we're gonna be keeping, which will give us reduced damage taken on first hit, aka the hit that will probably break the skill. We're also gonna be getting an infinite stamina buff, which it's kinda whatever since Strife and Berserk already did that for us, but hey, another one doesn't hurt. And of course, the most important part, as long as the skill is up, you have 0 sharpness consumption. This means no matter how much you hit the monster, your sharpness will stay in the same place. This is the reason why we are not using Master Touch or Razor Sharp on our build, and why our handicraft it's only 2, meaning the bare minimum to get proper sharpness on our fire and water dual blades, which are the ones that actually need that. And this is because, again, the moment the skill kicks in, you effectively have infinite sharpness, so you only need just enough to get purple sharp. Not to mention that if at any point of the fight you actually go down to purple sharpness, you don't even need to stop to sharpen. You literally just wait for the skill to kick back in, then you go ahead and change scrolls, and voila, your sharpness is back. Again, this skill is just insane. Now moving on to the last of these Berserk Strife sets, we're gonna be visiting the Blood Awakened one. This one using the new skill from the Primordial Morcino armor. It's quite literally the exact same thing as the Heaven-sent mixed. The difference is that instead of having all of that utility that I just told you that Heaven-sent offers to you, we're gonna be getting the extra damage that we get from the Blood Awakened skill after healing a certain amount of damage from a monster, either through breaking apart and healing with the Blood Rite skill, or getting hit in an afflicted fight and using the Blood Light to heal back. We're gonna get an increase to our attack and our elemental attack initially, and if we can heal even more while this buff is up, we're gonna get an even bigger attack and elemental attack buff. So by keeping things exactly like in the Heaven-sent armor set, just exchanging the Amatsu pieces with Primordial Morcino pieces and slotting in the following decorations. Your skill set will look something like this. So even if we have to go back to grab a couple of levels of Handicraft and Master's Touch, this armor set actually lets us still keep all of our damage skill maxed. We got level 3 critical element, element exploit and burst, while also having level 3 of the Blood Awakened skill for the maximum boost to our stats. And that's gonna be it for both of the endgame sets based around Berserk. Now, if you want to ask me which one of it's the best out of the two, it honestly comes down to personal opinion. Since Heaven-sent offers you so much utility and free slots that you can slot in more comfort skills or additional skills outside of damage, that one is actually my preferred choice. But if you only care about damage and finishing the quest as soon as possible, then the Blood Awakening one is probably end up being your choice. Of course, let's get to the Qurio augmenting. So for Qurio augmenting these sets, if you paid attention to both of their skill list, you probably noticed that we only had one level of Strife. This is something that you're gonna have to rectify through Qurio augmenting as soon as possible, since without Strife level 3, the Strife Berserk combo simply doesn't work. And after you secure your 2 points of Strife, then just like with the previous builds that I talked about, you wanna max your damage by going for 3 points of Metal Health 5. After you got these 5 augments, then you are already set with your build and there's really not that much to get. Like, you can maybe test your luck and grab either a Strife and Metal Health Fire in a single play, so that you can grab like Wind Mantle in another piece, or maybe grab Wind Mantle like together with the other two, but that could take a lot of time, so I will probably keep it at 2 points of Strife and 3 points of Metal Health Fire. Now moving on to the other build that is available for Dual Blades, this one is specifically tailor-made for the people who actually don't like HP drain skills. We're gonna be talking about Dragon Conversion now. So for a little bit of context, Dragon Conversion is a build that personally I don't like, at least on Dual Blades. I don't like it for the simple reason that you have to invest a lot through your Talisman and your Qurio augmenting for specific skills just to barely match an Strife Berserk build, as in, unlike all of the previous builds that I showed you, that most of them actually work without Qurio augmenting, only the 2 final ones needed that, and all of them only really need the addition of 3 points of Metal Health Fire to cap their damage. After that, you're good to go. Everything else is optional. Dragon Conversion doesn't have the same luck. This is because to make a Dragon Conversion build that actually hits decent enough, you'll have to pair your 3 points of Dragon Conversion with 3 points of Furious. And I'm gonna explain quickly why you need to do that, but before that, let's take a look at the build. So for a Dragon Conversion build, it's actually pretty simple. You want to grab the previous 3 pieces from the Amatsu armor set that I showed before, the chest, the legs, and the arms, and then you want to combine them with Ryzen, Balstrax, helmet, and waist piece. Then you want to combine all that with a Witness Exploit level 3 Talisman. You can get one of these pretty easily from the Cyclos Melding option, and then you want to slot your armor like this. For a skill list that should look something like this. Okay, now let me go back to explaining more. So, Dragon Conversion. Dragon Conversion, for anyone who doesn't remember or doesn't know, it's a skill that reduces all of your elemental resistances to 0 and converts 25% of that into elemental attack. Now, because elemental resistances cap at 50, we're talking about getting 50 in all of our elemental resistances if we want to take the most out of this skill. This is the part where a lot of people get confused and they think that they have to begin slotting in elemental resistances and eating for elemental resistances and stuff, but you actually don't have to do any of that. The moment you combine Dragon Conversion and Furious, you already have 45 in all of your elemental resistances, of course without taking into account any lost resistances from the armor themselves or Qurio augmenting. As it says on the description, Dragon Conversion already gives you 10 in all elemental resistances as long as you stay in the red scroll, which is where the conversion happens. Then you have Furious, which at level 3, while also staying on the red scroll with no further conditions, you get plus 30 to defense and plus 20 to all elemental resistances for a total of 30. And then you're probably wondering, where are the missing 15? Well, the missing 15 come from the blue scroll using Dragon Conversion. For you see, if you go to the blue scroll with this skill on and you do a certain amount of hits, these are different depending on each weapon, you eventually get a elemental resistance buff in the form of a multicolored shield over your HP bar. The moment you get this buff, you can immediately go back to the red scroll. This buff will grant you 15 in all elemental resistances, and you can grab this buff, take it back with you to the red scroll, and it's gonna get added to the rest. Meaning that, like I said before, with these two skills alone, we already have 45 elemental resistances, which means that we don't really need to go out of our way to slot in more elemental resistances, unless we have one elemental resistance going like really low, and you got the slots to compensate. So one specific reason why we are using Heaven-sent on this build and not something like Blood Awaken, it's for the following. So because we don't have a Strife on this build, we don't have Berserk, we don't have Strife, we don't have Dereliction. We can probably grab Dereliction through a Talisman, but again, this is a no HP drain build. And by that same condition, we're also not using Bloodlust. If we were to max our critical eye and our witness exploit, we're gonna be sitting at 90% affinity. So in order to reach 100% affinity with this build, what you're gonna need is 6 points of critical eye and then 2 points of maximum might. Since maximum might at level 2 gives you 20% affinity, as long as your stamina bar is full, with the infinite stamina that Heaven-sent gives you, this is gonna be active forever, or as long as the skill is running, of course. Meaning that when we combine all of our affinity skills, we can comfortably sit at 100% affinity as long as we have Heaven-sent going. Now let's move on to Frostcraft. So Frostcraft took a really interesting turn in Title of the Fight. After being introduced as an exclusive skill to the Volcana armor set, Frostcraft is now available through both Qurio augmenting and Talismans. This makes this skill the really nice bonus that it should have been from the very beginning, since now, instead of having to dedicate an entire build to this playstyle, we can just tag this skill alone to one of my existing builds. As a good example, and as I shown on the screen right now, we can grab one of my previous Strife Berserk templates and just change our Talisman with a Frostcraft one, assuming of course that between the Talisman slots and whatever free slot we had in our armor piece, we can compensate the missing skill. Now another thing that changes is that unless you specifically get a Frostcraft level 3 Talisman, you will probably need to compensate the missing levels through Qurio augmenting in your armor. Now, to move on to the final build that I'm gonna be talking about, let's talk for a moment about Raw Dual Blades. Yeah, that's right. With the introduction of the Amatsu pieces having the Silkbind boost skill, that for those that don't remember is the skill that we had all the way back in Rise, that increases the damage of our Silkbind move skills by 10%, not to mention the buffs that some of the Dual Blades moves receive in Title of the Fight, including Piercing Bind. We can actually make a build centered around spamming Piercing Bind over and over again, since unlike a Spiral Slash, which is the preferred choice for an elemental build, Piercing Bind can stick to any monster part compared to a Spiral Slash, which can only stick to weak zones. So by going mostly full Amatsu armor with Rise and Shagaru Waste Beast, grabbing an attack boost level 3 Talisman, preferably with maximum might as a second skill, and slotting in the following decorations. Your skill list should look something like this. Now this build basically centers around spamming Piercing Bind over and over again on the monster to get as big of a proc as possible, since Piercing Bind scales entirely of your attack and doesn't take any of your elemental attack into consideration. It offers a really fun playstyle for those that are kinda tired of the typical spin to win from the Spiral Slash and elemental builds. And while this build is obviously not meta and it's behind elemental builds, it's actually not that much behind in my personal experience, so don't feel discouraged to give it a try to this one, especially if you feel like doing something different with your Dual Blades. As a last point for this Dual Blade guide, I want to do a brief discussion about the switch loadout for Dual Blades. This is because I noticed a lot of misconceptions and confusion about certain skills, so I would like to try and clear a couple of things out. Let's begin with our first choice when choosing our switch skills, the decision between Demon Flare Rush and Demon Flight. So Demon Flare Rush and Demon Flight, prior to title of the fight, you will always choose Demon Flight over Flurry Rush simply because not only did it have more damage, but it also has the ability to evade through attacks thanks to the insane amount of iframes the jumping animation of that attack has. But after Demon Flare Rush was buffed in title of the fight, Demon Flare Rush went from something that you only used on certain matchups to abuse the attack to honestly just personal preference, as both Demon Flight and Demon Flare Rush do close to a certain amount of damage. So like I said, it's just honestly preference which one you want to use. After the buffs in title of the fight, me personally, I prefer Demon Flare Rush just because it's easier to control and maneuver around the monster compared to Demon Flight that requires you to have a certain amount of knowledge on the monster so that you can properly evade using the iframes and punish the monster accordingly. Now, our second choice of switch skills, it's even easier than the first one. The decision between Feral Demon Mode and Demon Mode, this one is quite easy. For you see, the difference is that Feral Demon Mode gives you raw attack, while Demon Mode gives you elemental attack. So I don't think I have to explain much further than that when you have to choose each of these modes. Our next choice comes in the form of slide slash combo and round slash combo. And I'm gonna be honest, on paper, both of these skills, similar to the first choice, come to personal preference. But I will honestly always choose round slash over slide slash. And this is because slide slash on paper sounds really cool. The idea of, you know, dancing around the monster, doing slight slashes here and there. But the problem is that because you travel a fixed distance every time you use this move, and it has that weird stat up animation, it can be really awkward to use appropriately. So it is much easier to just use your round slash combo to do damage, since not only it's more stationary, so it's easier to do damage, but if you really wanted to reposition, you could use your Flurry Rush just for the same purpose. Now, our next choice, it's the primary reason why I'm even doing this segment on this Dual Blades guide, and it's the choice between Piercing Bind and Spiral Slash. So here's the deal about these two skills. Piercing Bind scales only in your raw attack. It doesn't take into account any of your elemental damage. Meanwhile, Spiral Slash, although it scales on both your attack and your elemental attack, it scales way more in your elemental attack than your raw attack. So similar to the choice between Feral Demon Mode and Demon Mode, you simply want to choose to use Piercing Bind if you're going for a raw or status build, and you want to go with Spiral Slash for elemental builds. And for our last choice, we have the quote-unquote choice between Iron Shine Silk and Shrouded Vault. But here's the thing, between these two skills, you're not really gonna be choosing between one or the other. What you're gonna be doing instead is that you're gonna be putting one of these skills on your non-combat scroll and the other in your combat scroll. Let me explain more. Iron Shine Silk, it's a move that when used, you're gonna do this little animation that is gonna restore a little bit of sharpness, and it's gonna leave you with these white particles around your hands. This symbolizes a buff that lasts for 2 minutes, and what this buff does is that if you evade through an attack, you recover some sharpness. On the other hand, our other Silk Bind move, Shrouded Vault, is a counter where if we are hit at any point of the animation, we're gonna retaliate with a little jump that do some damage. So that's why the idea is that you want to put Shrouded Vault on the scroll that you're gonna be using. For example, if you're using a Berserk build, you want Shrouded Vault on your blue scroll, and if you're using a Dragon Conversion build, you want Shrouded Vault in your red scroll. And then on the opposite scroll that you're not gonna be using, you wanna put your Iron Shine Silk, because the idea is that you're gonna be using your Iron Shine so that you have 2 minutes of the recovery sharpness buff. And if you really need to refresh that buff, you can do so when the monster is down, either for a ride or for a large knockdown. So that's pretty much it. I think that was mostly everything I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you got something useful from this guide. If it's not the armor themselves, maybe it's some information that I drop or tip or whatever may have been helpful to you. If that's the case, please consider giving a like, subscribing if you want to see more content related to Dual Blades or something like this in the future. And nonetheless, leave a comment if you had any further doubts, questions, or just simply enjoyed the video and want to express the satisfaction. Or even if you didn't enjoy the video, then leave a comment and let me know what I did wrong, so maybe I can get it right in the future. So as a last message before I close down this video, I also want to let it be known that I'm gonna be working on a similar guide for Elemental Greatsword, obviously focused on the Surge / combo, and also for Insect Blade, both for raw and elemental builds. This is because those two weapons and playstyles are some of the ones that I enjoy the most on the game right now, and both of them are pretty surrounded by misconceptions, at least based on my experience online. So I want to drop a guide on each of them to see if I can help clear some of those misconceptions. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Now I'm gonna return to just playing the game for a little bit, and then I'm gonna be working on those guides. So see you on the next video. Peace.